Hi there, I'm Naomi Kinsman, the Executive Director and founder of Society of Young Inklings. And today we are going to be exploring how to start and finish a story in one sitting. Now, most of my writers who I work with don't really want to do a story that's quite so short. They are reading chapter books, novels, very exciting, long books. And when they imagine or dream about a book that they want to write themselves, they think of writing something big. But from parents, I hear lots of, how do I help my child actually finish the book that they're working on? And it's true, if you're working on a book that's as long as Harry Potter, it's not going to be finished in a week, nor is it going to be finished in a month or even maybe 6 months. And what that means is that you have to be extremely patient when you're working on a big, long book. It's true that writers can really learn a lot from writing a story that's short, that they can finish in one sitting or possibly 2 or 3 if you're not a really fast writer and you'd rather spread it out over a couple days. But today we're going to talk a little bit about how to write short. And that starts with coming up with an idea quickly and coming up with a manageably sized idea. So the first thing we're going to do is play a game to come up with a character. So what I want you to do, if you're playing along at home, is to find a place where you can stand up and move around a little bit. It doesn't matter if you can see me. You don't need to see me as we're playing this game. So go ahead and find your open space where you can hear me. And what I'd like you to do is shake out a hand, shake out another hand, shake out your shoulders, shake out a foot, shake out another foot. And then what I'd like you to do is I'd like you just to start walking around your space. As you're walking, I would like for you to think about how it feels to be excited. Think about the little fizzy feeling that you have in your stomach and think about how that kind of ripples up to your shoulders. Think about what it does to your eyes when you're excited. And how do you stand? What kind of posture? And as you're walking in this sort of excited way, you might be moving a little faster than usual right now. I want you to think of a character who might be excited. It's okay if you choose a superhero or an animal or a person. Just go ahead and first thing that comes to mind, you're that character and you're excited. That might change a little bit of the way you're moving. Maybe you move a little bit more quickly now. Maybe you have a little bit of a skip to your step. How about thinking now about your feet? If you are an animal, you're going to have a different kind of feet than if you're a human. If you're a human, you might have different kinds of shoes on than you currently are wearing now. So think about, what do those shoes do, or what do those feet do to the way that you move? And go ahead and let that affect how you're moving around your room. Now think about your legs. What are you wearing on your legs, and how does that affect the way that you move? How about your torso, from your shoulders to your hips? How does that affect the way that you move? And your face, and your hair, and your hands. Do you have something in your hands you might be using as you're moving around? All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to strike a pose on the count of 3. I'm going to count down. And when we get there, I want you to put this character in a particular place where they are excited. Because remember, they're excited for some reason. What is it that they're about to do or that they're doing just now that's making them feel excited? Think about it. First thing that comes to mind, here we go. 3, 2, 1, freeze. Excellent. Now, you have one character. What we're going to do is we're going to, as we're holding this frozen pose, think of who the exact opposite character is of this one that you have. Okay? Now, I'm going to count backwards from 10, and when I start, you can start moving around the room again. And in these 10 counts, I want you to completely transform your body into this new character. You ready? Here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent. So now you should be moving around as this new character. And you're the opposite character of the one you just were. So you might have an opposite emotion too. Think about how that emotion affects the way that you move. And now ask yourself, why? Why does this character feel this way? Where are they going today? And we're going to make another frozen pose of this character on their way somewhere. You ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1, freeze. Great. Now you have 2 characters. You can go ahead and relax. I want you to choose one of the 2, or if you're not really enamored with either one, I want you to just choose the first character that comes to mind. They can be a person, an animal, they can be a superhero, they can be magical, they can be a dragon, anything that you can imagine, all right? Now, we're going to quickly make a few choices about this character to get to know them just a little bit better. So, is your character older than you, same age as you, or younger than you? I want you to point to whichever side that you like, or you can even move your body. So, older than you, the same age, you're staying right here, or younger than you, you're moving to this side. Go ahead. Now, next we're going to think about, is your character someone who would invite tons of people to their birthday party, or someone who would not invite very many people at all, just a couple close friends? Point one way or the other, or move one way or the other. Great. Next up, would your character rather spend the day outside or inside? Point the direction or move the direction you choose. Next up, is your character someone who likes bright colors or who likes more conservative colors, or maybe more drab colors, black and white, grays? So bright or less bright. Okay, and come back. Next up, is your character someone who considers herself or himself or themselves to be creative or not so creative? Point to the side you choose. Great. Now what we're going to do, you've come up with a couple things about this character. I want you to come up with a name for your character. A lot of times people say to me, oh, I don't know what name to choose and it's going to take me a long time. Yeah, sometimes names do take a long time, but today, remember, we're going quick. We don't want to take too much time to come up with this story. So instead of doing a bunch of research, I want you just to choose the first name that feels like it might work. You can always change it later, but for now, just choose a name, okay? So you've got your name, maybe it's Sammy, okay? Sammy the squirrel, who is going to, we know a couple things about Sammy the squirrel. Maybe Sammy the squirrel is creative and is 6 years old and is really excited today because Sammy is going to take her first hot air balloon ride, okay? So now we know a couple things about Sammy. Whatever's going on with your character, you get to decide. Now what we need to know is what an ordinary day for this character is. If you chose the excited character, you might have to back up just a tiny bit and think about what might this character be doing on a regular day. But you can also think, okay, I'm starting this small story, so I want to create something that will get me to the exciting part soon. With my story, Sammy and the hot air balloon, I don't want to do this, I don't want to start my story a week ago. I want to maybe start on the day that she wakes up and she's going to go to the hot air balloon. Generally, as a writer myself, I don't like to start with the character actually waking up in bed because I feel like it's a little bit of a boring start. So I want to show a little bit about Sammy the squirrel before she gets in the hot air balloon. And she's excited because she is a very daring, creative young squirrel. And so what she's doing is she is creating her hot air balloon costume out of all of the bits and pieces that she can find in her yard. And this is an ordinary day for her because she's always doing creative things like this. So what I'll do is I'll think about, what could I create a little scene where Sammy is getting ready to go to the hot air balloon. Now I'm going to pick out this page now so I can show you how I'm actually doing this. And I gave you a link to this page that you can use yourself as you're planning out a story. Now this page is really useful if you're writing a short story because it will help you keep your story contained, keep it from kind of spiraling out of control. And here's a tip for those of you who think, no, I really want to write a big long story. Try writing something short like this. You can either use it to get to know your character, or sometimes these short stories that fit into a page like this are actually an excellent first chapter for a bigger book. So just see where this might take you. So on a regular day, my character is getting dressed up to go on this hot air balloon ride, and something happens. Well, maybe instead of the hot air balloon ride kind of going the way that Sammy thinks, maybe the hot air balloon falls down into her own backyard. And she's not expecting that at all. She thought she was going to go, but the hot air balloon shows up right in her yard. And as it falls to the ground, it rips on the side. So she's excited about going on this hot air balloon ride. She's got her costume half on, and the hot air balloon is there, but it's ripped. So now she has a problem she has to solve. So that's how here the problem begins, right? So Sammy is now going to have to try to do something. What could she do? Well, the balloon is ripped, so she needs to try to repair it. So I start to think, okay, she could get glue, or she could get a needle and thread, or she could get some interesting fabric. She could use feathers. She could, I don't know, she could fold origami, right? So you can come up with a variety of ideas and think, what's the most interesting for this character? Well, I think that it would be interesting if she actually tried to use some kind of origami and a needle and thread, because she's very creative, and I don't think that she would have all of these ingredients or all of these supplies where she is. So Sammy would have to, she's in the backyard, but she's a squirrel, so she actually lives in the tree in the backyard of a family. So now Sammy's gonna have to go into the house to get needle and thread. So on my page it says things only get worse. So I think what's going to happen is Sammy is going to try to sneak into the house, and that someone is going to see her. Someone who is not very excited about a squirrel being in the house. Who could that be? Let's have it be an old woman who is in the middle of baking a cake for a picnic. And she has been working so hard on making the beautiful decorations on her cake, and in comes a squirrel. So she's not happy. So she's going to pick up a broom and start swatting at Sammy the squirrel, and Sammy the squirrel is running all around. And to make matters worse, the door has shut behind her and she doesn't know how to get out of the house. So what is my character going to try to do? Well, she wants to leave the house, but she also doesn't want to forget the needle and thread, right? She still has that to deal with. So she's going to run upstairs. And the woman is going to go smacking the broom out after her, which makes what happens. She's upstairs. The woman is chasing her with the broom. The rest of the story could be a chase, right? Sammy could be running all over the house, and we could have the woman smacking at her with the broom. But that's not so interesting, because now it's the same thing over and over and over again. So I'm going to have Sammy go running upstairs with the woman smacking at her with the broom. And what's upstairs? A cat. Well, this cat is particularly large, round, orange cat, is very interested in Sammy the squirrel. And so her tail starts to flick, and Sammy is starting to feel a little bit nervous because there's a woman chasing after her with a broom, and on the other side of the hall, there is a big fat cat whose tail is twitching back and forth. So what is Sammy gonna do? I think that Sammy is going to skitter up the curtain, and she's gonna realize that the window is open. So she's going to hold onto the curtain with all of her might. She's going to wiggle, 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 and she is going to try to see if she can pull the whole curtain out the window with her. Do you think she can do it? I don't know. So she's swinging from the curtain, and this is where we're going to say the problem is at its worst, right? She's swinging from the curtain. She's not sure what to do, and rip, the curtain rips. She floats out the window. She pulls down on both sides, and she's able to float her way down into the yard. She's able to drag that curtain out toward the balloon. Somehow, let's say the woman and the cat get a little bit tangled up together, and so she has enough time to drape the sheet over the top of the hot air balloon, and they're able to fly up in the air. They're holding on tight so that they can get a little bit away, and then they land somewhere else and actually do the repairs to the balloon, and she has an excellent hot air balloon ride. Now, something surprises everyone is down here at the bottom, and sometimes if at that moment when they're flying up into the air, or something exciting is happening, you can add something that you're not expecting, like maybe a seagull shows up and rides along with them, or maybe something different happens to the hot air balloon that we're not expecting, but it turns into a parachute or something. You could do a lot of fun things with this moment here too. And then it asks, the problem is fixed when? Well, Sammy gets to go on her hot air balloon ride. And now that things have changed, maybe Sammy has become so invaluable to this hot air balloon driver, who is, let's see, not a squirrel, maybe it is a seagull who runs this hot air balloon service. So maybe Sammy gets hired by this hot air balloon driver, the seagull whose name is Wendy the seagull, okay? And so she gets hired by this seagull, and she now gets to ride around and fix the hot air balloon whenever it rips. And so she has a new and more adventurous life. So I've created this little tiny story. I've done it in about 10 minutes or less. And now what I can do is I can take each one of these scenes and I can write a little tiny scene for it. A scene needs that dialogue, it needs a little description, it needs some action, But it doesn't have to be long. You could have each scene be a paragraph, right? And if I did this story as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 paragraphs, that would probably be 2 pages. And if that was the case, then I could finish the story probably in about 45 to 60 minutes, depending on how quickly I wrote. Now, if you're someone who likes to write picture books, you could also sketch a quick image of each page and almost do it like a picture book with just a few lines where the picture really describes a lot of what's happening in the scene and the lines help describe what that story is at that moment. Now let me talk to you just a little bit about why writing a story in one sitting is a good idea. Now, of course, it's so good for you as a writer to write long stories where you develop a character through a whole character arc and you think about what is her internal desire and how can I show her growing through the course of this scene or this story. But what writing short does is it helps you to figure out how to get to the end of something. And when you're writing a long novel, sometimes it's hard to know if you ever will get to the end. So if you practice coming to a satisfying end that you feel excited about, you practice finding that little surprise that happens at the climax and coming up with an interesting ending, that's an important type of practice that you probably don't do that often. You probably start many stories in your life. You probably have started 20 or 30 or maybe 50 stories in your life. But how many stories have you finished in a way that you feel really proud of? I would guess that you could maybe count them on 1 or 2 hands, right? It's hard to get to the end of stories. And so if you practice that by writing short stories, you can really figure out ways to know how a whole story works. So the next time you're in the middle of a big, long project, you will know how to do it. Also, I told a silly story today about Sammy the squirrel. But if you're at a point in your writing where you want to write a story that is more challenging, that takes a character deeper into their feelings and their emotional life, you can also do that with a short story. You just have to start, like I said, closer to that moment when the story really picks up. And you can practice thinking about how this character really speaks and how they describe what they're feeling and how you can really play out that emotion in a compressed space so that you can really get the feeling of that moment. One thing that helps me sometimes too, if I'm writing a story that's a little bit more advanced, is I might create a poem of that story. What is the core emotion that I want to make, or how do I want to make my reader feel at this moment? And I might write just a short poem of how that moment feels. And then I will take that poem and transform it into a story if that's what I want it to be. Or the poem can stand alone. And again, that experience of creating one simple arc that has a beginning and a middle and an end is so satisfying for me as a writer, and it's so important for me in terms of developing my writing skills. So I hope you had fun today playing around with the character. We were able to create a character, to think of what might happen to that character. We didn't talk a lot about setting, but in my story, we had a backyard, we had a house, and we had the open air, right, in the hot air balloon. In your story, you'll want to think too about the setting and how you can describe that in ways that you love. And I would love to see any stories that you are able to write. If you'd like to send them over to us at Young Inklings, you can always go over to our contact page and you can send us your stories. We'd love to see them. You can also just tell us a quick little bit about your story in the comments below this video. We'd love to hear what you came up with. And we do hope that you will make sure to download this page. Remember, like I said, it's really good for just a quick writing exercise. It's also great for coming up with the beginning chapter of a longer book, if that's what you want to work on. And don't forget, over at younginklings.org, you can not only download this wonderful page, but you can become a free member of our society. We offer lots of fun resources for you, all for free. And we have programs where if you'd like to work more intensively with a mentor, you can sign up for a program like that. And we would love to help support you as you continue to develop as a writer. If you're an educator or a professional author or illustrator and you want to learn more about us, there's stuff for you over at younginklings.org as well. We hope to meet you very soon, and thanks so much for joining us today. See you next week. Bye-bye.